The mahogany door of the sanctuary opened, but the familiar smell of old paper and vinyl was gone, replaced by the smell of cheap industrial floor cleaner and a cold emptiness. I stood rooted to the threshold, the worn leather suitcase in my hand weighing heavily down. My office, once a miniature museum of dreams, was now empty. The tempered glass display cabinets running along the four walls were bare. No more 70s Chogokin robot models standing tall like guardians. No more Golden Age comic books wrapped in acid-free Mylar bags. Only rectangular dust outlines on the velvet lining remained, accusing the presence of treasures that had been stripped away. Voltes V Godikin version, missing. Mazinger Z Jumbo Machinder, vanished. The Detective Comics collection, issues 27 to 50, no trace left. My heart didn't beat faster. It beat slower. A heavy, suppressed beat, like the sound of a judge's gavel preparing to strike a death sentence. I turned, walking out to the living room. Giggling sounds echoed from the cream-colored Italian leather sofa. Rachel, my wife, sat there. She wore a flimsy silk dress, holding a glass of champagne. Next to her was Tyler, the CFO of my father-in-law's company, a man always sleek in overly tight tailored suits. Tyler was holding up his wrist, admiring a rose gold watch sparkling under the chandelier light. Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711. Market price around $150,000. "It's beautiful, honey," Rachel exclaimed, her red-painted fingers stroking the sapphire crystal of the watch. "It suits your class much better than that cheap smartwatch." "Thanks, babe," Tyler smirked, his eyes meeting mine, full of provocation. "Hi, Owen. Home early? How was the trash hunting trip?" I didn't answer him. I looked at Rachel. "Where is my stuff?" I asked, voice deep and dry. Rachel took a sip of wine, casual as if talking about the weather. "Oh, those iron dolls and that pile of waste paper? I cleared them all out. This house needs space for Tyler to put a new piano. Besides, looking at those things is deadly childish." "Guests come over and think my husband is mentally retarded." I gripped the suitcase handle tight. "Where did you sell them?" "Sell?" Rachel laughed, a sound shrill like a razor blade cutting glass. "Who would want to buy that trash?" I called the scrap collector who often passes by this area. He weighed it by the kilo, paid $500, just enough for me to tip the delivery guy who brought this watch here. $500. For a collection with an insurance valuation of $2.4 million. But monetary value wasn't what made the blood freeze in my veins. It was what lay inside them. Inside the hollow chest cavity of the Voltes 5. Inside the boot sole of the Mazinger Z. And clamped between the yellowed pages of Detective Comics issue 33. "Don't make that funeral face, Owen," Rachel stood up, walking toward me.
She raised her hand, intending to pat my cheek, but I took a step back. Her hand hovered in mid-air. "Grown men don't play with toys," she hissed, eyes narrowing. "You should thank me for helping you grow up. Now get into the kitchen and cook something. Tyler and I are hungry." I looked at her, looked at the Patek Philippe watch on her lover's wrist, looked at the ignorant arrogance covering this magnificent villa.
She didn't know what she had just done. She thought she had just cleared trash, but in reality, she had just pulled the safety pin of a legal nuclear bomb. She had just sold the only protective shield keeping her family out of prison for the past 20 years. "All right, Rachel," I said, voice so calm even I was surprised. "Thank you for helping me clean up. But I don't think dinner tonight will be appetizing."
I turned my back, walking toward the door. "Where are you going?" Rachel snapped. "To buy some spices," I lied. "The upcoming dish needs a lot of bitter taste."
I sat in my 1980 Volvo, parked in a hidden corner of the street. My hands shook violently as I lit a cigarette, not out of fear, but out of the excitement of a hunter who just saw the prey walk into the trap. Who did they think I was? An unemployed guy? A leech on his wife's family? An eccentric obsessed with old stuff? On the business card I never showed them, my name is Owen Vance.
But in the global antique collecting world, I am the curator. I am the only person on the East Coast capable of distinguishing 18th century ink from 19th century ink just by smell. I am the one hired by the Louvre and Met museums to appraise items worth tens of millions of dollars. My wealth doesn't lie in the bank in the form of easily traceable cash.
It lies scattered in secret vaults in Zurich, London, and Tokyo, in the form of priceless artifacts. I married Rachel 5 years ago due to a disastrous mistake of the heart. I had loved her sharp appearance, thinking she was smart, but I was wrong. That sharpness was just a cheap gold plating covering a hollow and greedy soul. The Clark family, her parents, owned Clark Enterprises. On the surface, it was a prestigious construction and real estate empire. Inside, it was a giant washing machine. 3 years ago, my father-in-law made me go down to clean the storage room in the old company basement to make a parking space for Tyler. "You fit with trash, Owen," he had said. "Go down there and dig around. Maybe you'll find some loose change." I found more than that. I found old ledgers, forgotten in a rusty safe he thought had a broken lock. With the skills of a restorer, I opened it within 30 seconds. Inside was a prosecutor's paradise. Lists of bribes to officials. Evidence of transferring money abroad through shell companies. Fake invoices for construction materials to evade corporate income tax. The total tax evasion amounted to $40 million. And the signature approving all those transfer orders. Not just my father-in-law, but also Tyler, the CFO,
and Rachel, the person named on 3 shell companies in the Cayman Islands. At that time, I intended to call the police immediately. But I am a collector. I know the value of patience. I know that an artifact has the highest value when it is announced at the right historical moment.
And I also knew if I submitted evidence in paper or digital form, they could use money to fix the case or hire hackers to delete traces. I needed a hiding place no one would suspect. A place right in front of the eyes, but far away on the horizon. I spent 3 consecutive nights in my sanctuary processing that pile of documents. I used a specialized microfilm camera from the Cold War era to photograph each page of the ledgers.
Thousands of document pages were shrunk into 5 tiny film rolls, each only the size of a pinky fingertip. Then I started the implanting process. Film roll number 1, hidden in the empty battery compartment of the robot Voltes VDX 1977 version. To get it out, you have to know how to rotate the robot's wrist joint 45 degrees and press a hidden button on the back. Film roll number 2, hidden in the base of the Mazinger Z jumbo machinder. It was disguised as a gravity-balancing magnet. Film rolls number 3, 4, and 5, sophisticatedly clamped between the cover and spine of 3 super rare action comics. I used the technique of separating ancient paper layers to hide them inside, leaving not a single ripple. For the past 3 years, their prison evidence lay right on the shelf in my room. Rachel walked past it thousands of times. She once picked up the Voltes V and threw it at me during an argument. She once held the very evidence sending her to prison in her hand without knowing it. She only saw it as childish toys. Arrogance had blinded her, and now that blindness had caused her to throw both her fortune and freedom into the trash heap. I took a long drag of the cigarette, smoke curling in the cramped space of the car. I looked at my watch. 6 p.m. Scrap yards usually close at 7 o'clock. The scrap collector Rachel mentioned, I knew him. His name was Old Joe, an old man who specialized in driving a rusty pickup truck around this Beverly Hills area to pick up things rich people threw away. He didn't know the value of antiques. He only cared about copper, aluminum, and scrap iron. If he melted down those robots, the microfilm would burn to ash in an instant. And along with it, the ticket to escape this hellish marriage of mine. I started the car engine. The Volvo engine roared smoothly. I wasn't going to buy spices. I was going to save my own life and to prepare for the final appraisal. An appraisal whose value is not calculated in money, but calculated in years of imprisonment. I stepped on the gas, the car speeding away in the blood-red sunset light. Just wait, Rachel. You want me to grow up? I will show you how adults play the game. Old Joe's scrapyard
was located at the edge of the industrial zone, where city lights never reached. The smell of rust, burnt machine oil, and pungent sulfur hit my nose as soon as I rolled down the window. The sound of the metal compactor operating rumbled like the growl of a hungry monster. Screech! I braked in front of the crooked chain-link fence gate.
Joe was standing there, holding an old flashlight, shining it on the pile of scrap metal just collected. He squinted at my Volvo, then spat on the ground. "Looking for something, buddy? This place doesn't sell vintage car parts." I stepped out of the car, trying to stay calm, even though my heart was pounding. I pulled the wad of cash from my pocket. $1,000.
"I came to buy back the pile of toys my wife sold you this afternoon," I said, voice trying not to reveal the trembling. Joe smirked, revealing teeth yellowed by smoke. "Ah, the lady in the villa on the hill. That pile of iron dolls? I threw them into the compactor already." The blood in my body seemed to freeze. The world around me wobbled. If those robots were crushed, the microfilm rolls inside would shatter.
The only evidence to send the Clark family to prison would disappear forever, and I would be stuck in this hell forever. "You're lying," I said, voice hardening. "Your compactor has been off since 6 p.m. I heard the engine cooling down as I drove in here." Joe squinted at me, surprise evident on his wrinkled face. "You're sharp." He jerked his chin toward a tattered cardboard box in the corner of the shed, lying over there.
"I intended to process it tomorrow morning. But the price isn't $500 anymore. I took the trouble to haul it here." I threw the wad of $1,000 toward him. "Keep it. Don't ask anything." Joe caught the money, counting quickly. "All right, crazy guy. Take it out of my sight." I rushed to the cardboard box. I knelt on the filthy ground, ignoring my clothes getting stained with oil and grease. I pulled the Voltes V out first. The metallic paint was still shiny, despite a few new scratches due to Rachel's roughness. I pressed the hidden button on its back. Click. The battery compartment popped open. The microfilm roll was still there, safe, wrapped in a protective lead shell. I exhaled, a long breath relieving a 1,000-pound burden. I checked the Mazinger Z and the comic books. All were intact.
Rachel was too lazy to check inside the items she considered trash. I hugged the box, carefully placing it on the passenger seat of the Volvo. I looked at Joe one last time. "Thank you, Joe. You just saved my life." Joe shrugged, turning his back. "I don't care. You and your wife are truly a match made in heaven. Too much money and crazy." I smiled. He was wrong. Rachel and I were not a match. We were two completely different species. She was a wood-eating termite, and I was the exterminator. 3 days later. The Clark villa was brilliant with lights again. Today was the celebration party for the Skyline Plaza project, a commercial complex project my father-in-law had just won the bid for. In reality, it was just a fenced-off wasteland for them to disperse millions of dirty money from foreign accounts.
Rachel forced me to attend. "You have to come, stand next to me, and smile," she ordered as she threw me a newly rented tuxedo suit. "Don't let the press see the husband and wife fighting. After this deal, when the money hits the account, I will sign the divorce papers for you." I looked at the suit. I didn't wear it. I wore my own bespoke suit, 60s classic style, tailored by an old artisan in London.
It wasn't shiny, but it exuded poise and dignity. Before leaving the house, I stopped by the Central Post Office. In my hand was a thick envelope, sealed and stamped. Inside were copies of all 5 microfilm rolls, enlarged and printed on high-quality photo paper by me. Included was a sample robot, a getter robo with a broken leg that I didn't regret losing, to serve as physical evidence of the hiding method. Recipient, Financial Crimes Investigation Unit, IRS CI, and Federal Prosecutor's Office. I dropped the envelope into the mailbox. A soft thud rang out. That was the opening shot for this war. I looked at my watch. It was 7 p.m. The mail would be processed tomorrow morning, but I had sent an encrypted email directly to Special Agent Davis, whom I once helped appraise an antique smuggling case last year.
He would receive it right now. I got in the car, driving toward the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, where the party was taking place. Tonight, I wouldn't play the puppet husband anymore. Tonight, I would be the final appraiser for the value of the Clark family. 8 p.m. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel lobby was magnificent and luxurious to the point of breathtaking. Hundreds of guests in the elite circle were raising glasses to toast Mr. Clark.
My father-in-law stood on the stage podium, droning on about vision and mission. Tyler stood next to him, smiling smugly, hand still wearing the Patek Philippe Rachel bought with the money from selling my collection. Rachel stood below the stands, gorgeous in a diamond-studded evening gown, accepting fake compliments from the ladies. I walked in. My appearance didn't attract much attention, because in their eyes, I was just a shadow.
But Rachel saw me. She frowned, approaching, hissing through her teeth. "Why are you so late? And what is this ancient outfit? Are you intending to embarrass me?" I looked straight into her eyes. My gaze was cold and sharp as a scalpel blade, making her pause for a second. "Tyler's watch is beautiful," I said, voice calm. Rachel snorted, regaining her arrogance. "Of course, you should feel grateful for the sacrifice of that trash." "I am very grateful, Rachel," I smiled slightly. "Thanks to you selling it, I realized its true value." "What value?" she sneered. $500? "No," I shook my head. "The value of freedom." I took a glass of red wine from a passing tray. I didn't drink. I just swirled the glass gently, watching the red color rippling like blood. "You know, Rachel, in the appraisal profession, we have a rule. Never judge an item by its flashy appearance. Sometimes the thing that looks the cheapest holds the most expensive secret." Rachel frowned, feeling something wrong in my tone. "What are you babbling about? Are you drunk?" "No, I am very sober." I looked up at the stage where my father-in-law was preparing to raise a toast.
I looked at my wristwatch, a vintage Omega Speedmaster. Exactly 8:15. Your time is up. Bang. The grand doors of the lobby were pushed open, not by a late guest, but by a special task force wearing bulletproof vests printed with IRS and FBI in bright yellow. The jazz music died down. Sounds of glasses dropping and shattering rang out. The crowd panicked and parted to both sides.
Special Agent Davis walked in, holding an arrest warrant high in the air. "Everyone freeze! This is an emergency arrest warrant. Mr. Thomas Clark, Mrs. Rachel Clark, and Mr. Tyler Ross. You are under arrest for tax evasion, money laundering, and large-scale commercial fraud." Rachel's face turned from red to paper white. She turned to look at me, eyes wide with horror. I still stood there, taking a sip of wine. The bitterness of the wine mixed with the sweetness of revenge. The real party was just beginning. Chaos engulfed the Ritz-Carlton hotel lobby. Ladies screamed, dropping Chanel purses to the floor. Gentlemen panicked, looking for an escape route, but every exit was blocked by FBI agents. Agent Davis walked straight toward the stage, where the Clark family was huddled like a pack of rats cornered. "Mr. Thomas Clark," Davis read clearly. "We have evidence that you embezzled $40 million from public investment funds and evaded federal taxes for the past 10 years. Mr. Clark's face drained of blood, hands trembling, dropping the red wine glass onto his pristine white shirt. "Mistake! It must be a mistake!" Rachel screamed, rushing down from the stage podium. She pointed at Davis's face, fingernails sharp as if wanting to claw. "Do you know who my father is? Our lawyers will sue you in court." "I don't think so, Mrs. Clark," Davis said, voice calm. He signaled another agent to bring a metal box. The box was opened right on the banquet table, next to the collapsed champagne glass tower. Inside was the Getter Robo with a broken leg that I had sent, and next to it were enlarged photos from the microfilm roll, clearly showing signatures and numbers. "We received a very interesting file this afternoon," Davis said, glancing at me with a meaningful look. "Hidden inside an old toy. Who would have thought your entire criminal empire lay neatly in the leg of an iron doll?" Rachel froze. She looked at the robot in the box, then turned to look at me. Her eyes shifted from horror to extreme anger. "It's you! You bastard! You set me up!" She rushed at me, intending to slap me like every other time. But this time I caught her wrist in mid-air. My hand, usually only used to holding magnifying glasses and soft brushes, was now hard as cold steel. "I didn't set you up, Rachel," I said, voice icy. "I just returned your belongings to you." I threw her hand off, causing her to stagger and fall to the floor. Tyler stood nearby, face pale, trying to hide in the crowd. But an agent grabbed his collar. "Tyler Ross," the agent read the name. "You are also arrested for money laundering and complicity. And this watch," the agent removed the Patek Philippe from Tyler's wrist roughly. "It is physical evidence
bought with illicit money. Tyler stammered, looking at the watch being thrown into the evidence bag, like seeing his soul being stripped away.
I walked closer to Rachel, sitting on the floor, the magnificent evening gown now looking truly pathetic. I bent down, looking straight into her eyes. "Do you remember what you said?" "Childish stuff, get it out of my sight." I pointed at the robot in the evidence box. "Yes, it is a childish toy. But children don't know how to lie, Rachel. Only adults like you are dirty. And the price to pay for despising the past."
I stood up straight, adjusting my suit button. "Is your entire future." Rachel burst into tears, the crying mixing with the police sirens outside. My father-in-law was handcuffed, head bowed to the ground, daring not to look at anyone. The glitz, fame, money, all collapsed in the blink of an eye, just because of a robot they considered trash.
The police convoy left, taking away the remnants of the Clark family. The hotel lobby was quiet. Only staff cleaning up the mess remained. Agent Davis walked over to me, taking off his tactical gloves to shake my hand. "Thank you, Owen. Your expertise is truly impressive. Without that sophisticated hiding place, we probably would never have found the evidence." "That is my job," I replied, shaking his hand. "Preserving the truth." I walked out of the hotel. The night air was cool, strangely fresh. I walked toward my old Volvo. On the passenger seat was still the cardboard box containing the collection I had just redeemed from the scrapyard. I opened the box, picking up the Voltes V to admire. The scratched paint under the yellow streetlight looked like the scars of a warrior just returned from the dead. I placed it on the dashboard, neatly and solemnly.
I didn't go back to that villa anymore. That place was now sealed, and what belonged to me was entirely in this car. I started the engine. The engine roared, sounding like a sigh of relief, of freedom. I took out my phone, removed the SIM card, and snapped it, throwing it out the window. No more Owen, the weak son-in-law. Only Owen Vance, the curator, remained.
I put it in gear, the car rolling slowly away from the magnificent and fake city of Los Angeles. I would go north, to Seattle or Portland, where I would open a small, quiet museum, where old items are cherished for their true value, and where I would live my own life, not as an accessory for anyone. I looked at the robot on the dashboard, smiling slightly. Let's go, old friend. The collecting journey has just begun.
The Volvo faded into the night, leaving behind the flashy lights of a finished party.